This informational item is intended to provide a little context for where the rules and this action before you fits in to our overall stewardship and management program for Mauna Kea. So you have a copy of a brochure that we produced to summarize where we have been in particular over the last roughly 18 years. So without going into the history, roughly speaking, we were awarded a lease by DLNR in the 1960s to develop an astronomy program on Mauna Kea. This was done at the request of people on the Big Island following the devastating tsunami. During that period through 1998, indeed, with the leadership of the UH Manoa Institute for Astronomy, a successful astronomy program was created on Mauna Kea. The 1998 audit is often referred to. It was quite critical of the University of Hawaiʻi, and I would say justifiably so. That was a wake-up call for the university. And the brochure summarizes many of the changes and improvements that took place. And I won't review that at all. I really want to talk about where we are today and how the rules fit into some of our path forward. So the rules are essential, and you heard that from the testimony, including from those who testified requesting that we not move forward at this time. Nobody that I know of, well, I shouldn't say nobody, but it is very rare for people to dispute that rules would be helpful. In particular, rules provide the opportunity for us to implement regulations and rates for commercial tour operators. Right now, we are operating under the inherited rules and vendors that DLNR turned over to us. This is also the means for us to control excessive traffic on the mountain, which we are often criticized for not doing. And of course, the rules themselves are the single most significant, outstanding action remaining from the 2014 audit, which otherwise was fairly complimentary of our stewardship. So let me say a little bit now about the path forward, because that work was about mostly the environment, traffic, and impact. And balanced stewardship is absolutely essential, and we need to get beyond our strengths in astronomy, which are proven, our protection of the environment and physical protection of cultural resources, which are laid out in this brochure. And we need to move on with a stronger emphasis on cultural practice, history, and education as co-equals with the work we have been doing so far. And I'll just read you two bits of your resolution, which you passed last August, that really set a new direction. Whereas the Board of Regents believes that Mauna Kea can and should be a global model that provides inspiration, harmony, and peaceful coexistence among culture, education, the environment, and scientific discovery. That's how you open. And then you closed with, the Board of Regents, through this resolution, hereby affirms its commitment to the collaborative stewardship of Mauna Kea's cultural, natural, educational, and scientific resources, and directs the university to move forward to collaboratively build a global model of harmonious and inspirational stewardship that is befitting of Mauna Kea. So let me say a little bit about the work we're doing now. It needs to be clear to the public and the community that we're listening to what we hear, including here today, and that our actions moving forward show how we are making your resolution and our verbal commitments that we have made in the past real. So just a few things, and I'll just highlight work underway over the past year since your resolution. At that meeting, you heard from the Maunakea Management Board their dissatisfaction with the extent to which the University of Hawaiʻi was listening to them, engaging them, and allowing them to do their job as they understood it. Soon thereafter, we appointed the chair of the Maunakea Management Board, who happens to be a University of Hawaiʻi faculty member, as our senior advisor. And since that time, he has assumed, that's Greg Chun, and I think you'll see him shortly, he has assumed a major role advising both the UH Hilo Chancellor and myself, and participates in all of our meetings and helps us set the direction for how we move forward with stewardship. That has been a huge step in healing that disconnect that you heard about, our disconnect from our very own community-based advisors. I will also say he is assisting the mayor, and you heard when we were in Hilo earlier this spring, he's instrumental in working with Mayor Kim and the council that he established, and I will tell you, in spite of everything else going on Hawaii Island, the mayor is still paying attention to that council as a priority. Earlier this year, we began the EIS process to extend the land tenure and secure a long-term future for astronomy on Mauna Kea. This is something that we need to do for the university, for the observatories. It's part of the 10-point plan. And frankly, as I'll mention, it will also be part of the plan to obtain additional resources to support improved stewardship. The CRs that Vice Chair Kudo mentioned were developed by Kahuku Mauna and approved by the Maunakea Management Board last month. That is the other, that represents the other significant outstanding item from our audit comments in the 2017 update to the 2014 audit. These are policies that are intended specifically to protect Native Hawaiian cultural resources as outlined in the comprehensive management plan. Some of you know that a number of members of the Maunakea Management Board, again, those are our community advisors from Hawaii Island. A number of those seats become vacant July 1. And traditionally, those have been appointments, recommendations from the Hilo Chancellor to the Board of Regents via the President. In the spirit of collaborative stewardship that you outlined, this week, Chancellor Sakai and I requested in writing the names of suggested nominees to serve and represent the community on the Maunakea Management Board. We requested names from OHA, from the Conservation Council for Hawaii, from Department of Hawaiian Homelands, from DLNR, from the 3 Hawaii Island Chambers of Commerce, from the mayor, and from all Big Island legislators. Now, we obviously can't take every name, but we are casting a very wide net from all of those groups to identify people who represent the community. One of our priorities has been decommissioning. We have announced 2 decommissioning actions. One is Hokukea, that's the UH Hilo Educational Telescope. I am happy to report, and we started that, and there was pushback at the Maunakea Management Board about shutting down an educational telescope on Mauna Kea. I'm happy to report that since that was deferred, we have all but finalized the identification of an alternate site for an educational telescope that will provide robust access and high quality viewing. We're not quite ready to announce that yet, but that was the stumbling block. I will say that the processes of decommissioning must be conducted in accord with the decommissioning subplan of the comprehensive management plan, and there are strict requirements on how decommissioning takes place, just as there are strict requirements for anything that is constructed or major activities on the mountain. The other one is the Caltech submillimeter observatory. That decommissioning is underway. They have their consultant underway. They're conducting listening tours. That one is even more complicated to decommission because it's a more complicated structure. And the decommissioning plan includes the requirement that we restore the site to the extent that's possible. Finally, on decommissioning, I will say we have multiple decommissioning plans that are and commitments out there. First is the comprehensive management plan, which lays out a set of decommissioning of telescopes to be done by 2033. That's the end of the current master lease. We have a set of UH commitments in response to the 10-point plan. And then we also have a set of requirements imposed by DLNR as part of the Conservation District Use Permit for TMT. There is a requirement to do additional decommissionings. So those all have different dates, slightly different language, slightly different wording, and we're working our way through exactly what additional decommissionings must take place in what time frame during the roughly 15 years between now and 23 in order to satisfy all of the commitments we have made going back to the Comprehensive Management Plan in 2009. One of the comments that I strongly agree with in the OHA testimony that you received this morning is the need to ensure that all future observatory subleases provide an appropriate, consistent, and sufficient level of financial and other support for the stewardship of Mauna Kea and its natural and cultural resources. The disagreement that we have with that statement is that we don't believe that belongs in the rules, and our team will talk about that more. But it is absolutely essential. We have done that with the TMT sublease, which is the only sublease the university has entered into this century. And it does provide for substantial and predictable resources of about $1 million in sublease rent, which will be dedicated to stewardship, less ceded land payments to OHA, and an additional $1 million in community benefits for the people of Hawaii Island, and an additional workforce pipeline to help ensure that Hawaii Island residents are qualified for the great jobs that will be created through TMT. We have already been talking with the observatories about using that as a model for all new sublease agreements. So we are not reneging on the agreements that were lawfully entered into with each of the observatories now on the mountain, but we are talking with them about what their next subleases will look like in the extended land tenure available. And frankly, we are looking at incentives for how they might wish to migrate over sooner and begin to accrue those benefits to the community and stewardship, perhaps before the end of their current subleases. Lastly, let me mention our commitment to try to enhance education and culture on the mountain. We currently operate a visitor information station, which is pretty much focused on astronomy with the environment. We have begun talking about a new culture and education center that will deliver on that commitment to bring all of culture, education, astronomy, and research together in a unified focus. The House budget did include planning money for such a center. Unfortunately, the Senate did not support that request, but we are committed to begin to identify how we can begin community-based visioning for such a center at the mid-level facilities. In the meantime, there's in a related matter, a conservation district use application that will be heard by BLNR this Friday that will be a first step in helping us improve the safety of the visitor experience on the Mauna. I will also say that in conversations with Imiloa, and you all had the opportunity to experience Imiloa when you were in Hilo earlier this year, we are looking at Kai'u and her team to help us lead what a visitor information station or visitor center that meets what I believe your expectations and laid out in the resolution would look like. This is an inspiring but daunting task before us. The challenges are certainly great, but the opportunities are even greater for us to move forward.